can only be attributable to human error.
You're entering Paranormal.
He meddled in things that you people. He meddled in things. He meddled in things.
Where will we go next? Just phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Muller.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hello, I'm Alex Daikaiju,
I'm Jasmine with
I'm Eli Watson.
and we are
Cryptid.
Campfire.
woohoo!
Woo! I'm feeling a little festive today. I've got my Santa hat on because this is going to be our last episode before the holidays, everybody. This is our last episode of the year.
This is our last episode?
Of the year.
Oh,
Of the tome as well.
Of the tome as well. Yeah, we are doing our world tour finale today. We'll have a little bit of a holiday send-off, and we're going to take a little bit of a break, but we'll talk more about that at the end, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, I just want
Well,
to say,
Go ahead.
I just want to say, there's been some legendary world tours throughout the ages. Who could forget Van Halen World Tour 82, or the Ozzy Osbourne Motorhead Global Domination 88, or the ultimate Cheap Trick live at Budokan? Well, we are Cryptid Campfire, and we're live at YowieCon in Australia, baby.
Let's go!
Woohoo!
Yes. I want to do a shout out. Real quick. This beanie I'm wearing comes from the Forest Floor. She released holiday beanies. She has regular beanies for most of the year, but in December you can wear the Santa beanies. They're available at theforestfloor.com. Just a shout out because
Nice. So we are, like I said, finishing off our world tour this episode. It's our second stop on the continent / country. Is Australia considered a country? No, there's countries inside of Australia.
no,
Right.
you're wrong. It's a country.
Continent,
It is a country?
It is a country.
Okay. And a continent. Good
Right?
to know.
Yes, it is both.
I should have known this
Yes, it
by
is both.
now,
It
considering
is
our
both.
last episode took place in Australia, but you know how good we are with geography.
Australia is a land of mystery, wonders, and shrimps on the barbie, if I'm to be led by Outback Steakhouse.
Mm-hmm. So, as Alex said, we're at YowieCon, which must mean we are talking about Australia's version of Bigfoot, the Yowie.
That's right. Because if you're going to be anywhere on the map, and I mean a continent, a country, anything on the map, you got to have your own version of Bigfoot.
It's true. I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's a Bigfoot-like creature. So large humanoid creature reported anywhere from big range here, 6 to 12 feet tall.
Yeah.
But there's a couple things that sets it apart from a Bigfoot.
And they are
Sharp canine teeth that stick out of its mouth
like fangs.
like fangs. I think 3 fingers and a thumb that all end in talons.
Mm-hmm.
Some witnesses even report that a foul smell emanating from the creature.
Well,
Yeah, this guy's got a pungent scent, which reminds me of the skunk ape? We talked
The
about
skunk
that at
ape,
one point,
yeah.
didn't we?
Yeah.
There is.
He's Florida's Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Which I just found out I'm gonna go look for next month.
Oh, snap. Nice.
Whoa, good luck.
Yeah. I don't know if it starts stinking or maybe that's just my farting.
Oh.
Ew. Oh my gosh.
You know, it's classy when we have fart jokes on our Christmas special.
Yeah. Typical fur color, dark brown or black. Nose described as wide and flat. And then I have a couple pretty descriptive little paragraphs here that talk more about the appearance of the Yowie and how it behaves. Let's see if this sounds familiar to you guys or if you agree. So they walk upright upon 2 legs with a stooped gait, the head having no neck. It is sunk into the shoulders, giving the stooped appearance. They have thick eyebrow ridges and a pointed sagittal crest, skull dome, and receding chin. The arms are longer than a human's, the fingers reaching down to the knees, and the feet have an opposable big toe. But I did also hear that, and I don't know how true this is. Again, how true is anything we talk about on this podcast? But the the feet are potentially backwards as to trick those
Fake.
who are tracking.
That's fake. Because
Fake.
Let me take this opportunity to thank y'all for watching Cryptid Campfire and ask that if you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now. Like this video and click on the bell so you can be notified each time a new video goes up. And now, back to the show.
well, I don't know. That comes up a lot. Like
That's
I
not the
don't
first
think-
time we've heard something like that.
the mapping worry I can think of. I don't think we brought it up during the episode, but the orang pendek supposedly also has backwards feet.
Mhm.
It's fake. It's not real. It's
How would you know?
What?
'Cause
one of
apparently-
nature's- oh,
I
one
had
of
one
nature's
ex-
biggest
one
ahead.
of nature's biggest what?
missteps, giving creatures backwards feet. You know.
Get it? Because feet misstep. Ha ha ha. There's one example I came across of supposed backwards feet, which was there's some Yowie tracks. I forget the year and when this
Sorry,
took place.
I know what you said, but it sounded like you said meowie.
Yowie
Meowie.
tracks.
Meowie.
Some Yowie tracks where they were walking along following the tracks, and then the tracks suddenly reversed, and so it was like two toes pointed at each other, but then the tracks continued on backwards, and they were like, how did this happen? The Yowie must have backwards feet, or maybe it just started walking backwards.
Or maybe it was two coming up to a meeting point and then they fell through a dimensional window.
It's very real possibility.
I think that's what we have to accept.
That is a possibility. A little bit more description wise, while males are often strong and muscular with thick long hair, the females are slender, have less hair, and long pendulous breasts.
Whoa.
Shout out Patty.
Yeah, or the Yeti. For
Yeah.
having the biggest ones known to man, dude. They have to fling them over the shoulder.
Okay, all right.
They're-
Anyway.
they really are bosom buddies.
Oh, goodness. Okay, wait.
Supposedly, sorry, go ahead. I know I'm the one who brought it up. What
No,
what do you,
no.
Devil's advocate, eh?
That's interesting because there's specifically a point in the book where I got most of my research for today. This is called The Yowie in Search of Australia's Bigfoot by Tony Healy and Paul Cropper, who are Yowie researchers for, I think, like 30 years by that point, 30, 40 years. And they said that there are very rare reports of Yowie women or females, but they don't think, because the ratio is something like 90% of sightings are supposedly male. The problem with that is, like, when you're seeing a Yowie, you're not checking for the genitals, like, what is this thing, So they
like that's
estimate-
not the most important fact. It's like we're not worried about male or female.
The only time anyone ever did that was the lady who saw the chupacabra. That was like the one thing she really pointed out, was the lack of genitalia on the creature.
Yeah. So that's it. It's interesting. They have a whole chapter dedicated to what they call the sexual dimorphism, which is the difference between men and women, and they think it might be actually pretty low. Meaning that male and females look kind of similar.
Yeah.
So,
They are herbivores, supposedly.
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, that's
You didn't get anything about it eating kangaroos?
No. I did. So from what I gathered, it's mostly a herbivore and it will only kill something if it has to.
mm-hmm.
I didn't read anything specific about it killing kangaroos, but I did read a couple things about it killing dogs, which made me sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little problematic.
Yeah. Supposedly also very timid and shy creatures, preferring to keep clear of man, staying in the remote mountainous regions But again, we're seeing them. They're
Either-
killing dogs.
That's I found a good sentence, or two sentences, I should say. I think this one, I'm just going to attribute it to the Cryptid Wiki because it's along the lines of behaviorally, some reports that the Yowie are timid and shy. Others describe Yowies as sometimes violent and aggressive. So, what is it?
Yeah.
Big spectrum.
That's interesting. I have mostly aggressive tendencies
Like
coming, but
I mean the giant protruding fangs and the giant talons on the claw at the end of its fingers might be
Mhm.
a symptom of violence.
no, dude, it's nice.
Yeah,
It's like the Rougarou. It jumps out to scare you, not to hurt you.
And then laughs and runs away.
hee hee hee. A Joker.
How about names? What do we got for names? Because as we know, when it comes to especially Bigfoot-like things, the general name is not always the actual name. So what I'm saying is the Yowie is not the name for the Yowie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a nickname.
Go for it, man. I don't have.
Oh no, no one has anything. No one.
I mean,
no one's-
well, I'm not sure what you're trying to segue to. The only other name.
I was asking if you guys have names, other names.
Let's see.
Okay, no one's got names. Okay,
Yahoo. That's all I have.
I, chef. So I have some different names here.
Did your voice just drop?
I did it myself. So, and these are separated by state because Australia, I believe, has a prime minister, but they also have states. Woohoo. It's a combo, of Britain and the United States.
Just more political mumbo jumbo.
Yes, indeed. So North Queensland, the tribes there call it the Queen Kin. New South Wales calls it the Jugabina. I like that one. That's a fun one.
It's a good one.
The state of Victoria calls it the Gubba or the Doolager or the Gulaga. West Australia calls it the Jimbra or the Jingra. And the Northern Territory calls it the Pang Karlangu.
Some of those did sound familiar. I remember scanning my eyes across some of those through my research.
Yes. And as Jasmine mentioned, Yahoo comes up time and again. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's pick whatever name you want to call this thing because there's plenty to go around.
Yes. I also got here, I guess if we're moving into more of the folklore, mythological aspects, there's some interesting parallels to Sasquatch and some also unique things to the Yowie. So one of the things that is like Sasquatch is to speak of the Yowie is bad luck. So that's actually like a lot of cryptids, more than just Bigfoot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I have this. This is interesting. According to some Aborigine myths, that the Yowie stomps on the ground or whacks trees to announce their presence. Is that tree knocks? Tree knocks, anybody?
They're just the opening band for Cryptid Campfire here at YowieCon.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, that'd be a good opening band. Just a bunch of Yowies come out and just start stomping and hitting trees with branches, hooting and hollering a little bit too, maybe rooting and tooting for good measure.
Well, tooting. Well,
insert fart sound here.
I also have another report that Yowies can climb trees, or supposedly.
I'd hope so.
That's kind of interesting. There's some belief that juvenile Sasquatch can climb trees. And also, I believe juvenile gorillas can climb trees, but as they get older, they stop because, big chungus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big monkey.
there's also reports, and this reminds me a lot of the Nandi bear and some baboon behavior we talked about, where
Mm.
there's reports of Yowies stealing women for certain reasons and to eat them.
Oh,
So the Aborigines, and this seems to be like a whole general like countrywide thing, did not like the Yowie very much. In fact, their general response to the Yowie was to kill it as quick as possible. There's actually a lot of stories of Aborigines fighting or killing Yowies to protect themselves or their family, just because the Yowie will not quit.
mm-hmm.
You know, like if it's got its mind set up that it's going to steal your wife, it's not going to stop unless you kill it, which is absolutely insane. Like that would be terrifying. Everything we just talked about, it sounds so scary.
I mean, I'm telling you, imagine in our day and age, it's just like, all right, well, it's 2021, you know, I got to deal with, you know, taxes, I got to deal with car payments, you know, figuring out how to buy Christmas presents. And now there's some 12-foot tall gorilla-like monsters outside trying to get into my house because they want the turkey that I'm planning on serving. And I got to get my machete and I got to get my machine gun and I got to fight these big monsters.
Yeah,
so I can eat turkey.
supposedly this one Aborigine got into like a bare knuckle brawl with one and just
Whoa.
like literally punched it to death.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Mortal
it's pretty
Kombat.
like pretty savage stuff, man. Supposedly, this is getting into the more, I guess, harder to believe stuff. That so supposedly they are able, and I'm gonna say supposedly they are able to do this, but these are all mythological aspects of the Yowie. You know, I don't want to say people don't think this is real, but there's a, I want to say it's along the lines of like the coyote is the trickster in Native American folklore. Like, do they actually literally believe that any coyote you see out there is out to like trick and confuse you, or is it more of like a way of understanding the world, you know? And so in their mythology, the Yowies can fly, and they also have the ability to make you sleepy and can confuse you to the point that where it calls your name and you go to it and then it kills you and eats you.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty savage, bro. I don't, this is like Bigfoot but on roids.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, there are different names for the Yowie, and one name that is interesting, that is associated with the Yowie but doesn't seem quite like the Yowie, is called the Turramulli, which supposedly was so tall, or is so tall, that it stands taller than trees. It's a hair-covered man with 3 clawed toes and fingers with talons, no neck. It's set into its shoulders, very Yowie-like, except for the height. It sleeps in caves for months, so it seems like it's hibernating until the start of the dry season, so I guess through the winter. And then it comes out looking for people or kangaroos to devour.
Whoa.
And actually, that's what's on the cover of the book. It's the Turramulli, not the Yowie.
Interesting. We've already previously mentioned how there's so many different names that the Yowie actually goes by. The origin of the word Yowie, or the choosing the name Yowie to represent this creature, it is unclear, but the term was in use in at least 1875 among the Kamilaroi people and documented in Reverend William Ridley's Kamilaroi and Other Australian Languages. It's literally one sentence though. I wish it would have gone into more detail. It just says the Aborigines believe in many spirits. Yowie is a spirit that roams over the earth at night.
Wowie.
Kind of an understatement.
Here's the thing. The term Yowie, there are references of it prior to the year 1975.
1975 or 1875? I said 1875 just now.
No, 1975. The references to the name Yowie for this creature prior to the year 1975 are scarce. There's not a whole lot of them because they're called different names. 1975 is a very special year for Yowie research because that's when our boy Rex Gilroy shows up on the scene. He's really credited as the one who popularized the term Yowie. And in fact, for a long time before these older references were brought up, thought to have made the term Yowie up. So there's that. But I don't think he did because there are references to Yowie.
Yeah.
There's not a lot, but they do exist. So
There's also potentially a lot of overlap with something called the Yahoo. I'm not sure if it's the same thing or if it's, something different, but some modern writers do suggest that the name Yowie arose through the Aboriginal legends of the Yahoo. Robert Holden recounts several stories that support this from the 19th century, including an account from 1842. The natives of Australia believe in the Yahoo, this being they describe as resembling a man of nearly the same height, with long white hair hanging down from the head over the features, the arms as extraordinarily long, furnished at the extremities with great talons. Sounds pretty similar to the Yowie so far, aside from the hair color, and the feet turned backwards.
Wait,
so
what's the hair color again?
White.
Oh,
It could be an elderly Yowie.
Could be.
Or it's a Yeti, dude.
Yeah. Yeti on vacation in Australia.
Feet turned backwards so that on fleeing from man, the imprint of the foot appears as if the being had traveled in the opposite direction. Altogether, they describe it as a hideous monster of an unearthly character and ape-like appearance.
A little rude, I think.
It is also kind of brought up. I think we talked a little bit about this in our Burringer episode with Carrick, the dreaming or dream time. There's another thought that the name came from this because there was an old Bungaree. Oh man, I always try and look up how the pronunciations of things. It's his name, Old Bungaree or Bungaree. I'm not sure if it's a hard or a soft G. He is a Gunnedah Aboriginal, and he said at one time there were tribes of the Yahoos, and they were the original inhabitants of the country.
Yes, I kind of glossed over it, but the several tribes talk about how the Yahoos or the Yowies basically ran Australia for a time until people showed up, and there was like a full-on war with them, and humans won.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. Oof. Yeah, man, I don't know what's up with that. Oh, quick fun facts. Almost all Aborigine tribes make the claim that Yowies live in the mountains and also that they are associated with stormy weather, which immediately reminded me of our Patty episode or the Patterson Gimlin film episode where it rained immediately after. Of course, when they had all these perfect footprints, it started raining. It seems that happens a lot, and it's like, what if because of the thunderstorms, static electricity in the air, interdimensional window faller, Thunderbird.
Yeah. Passing Thunderbird.
The Thunderbird clears up the path that the Yowie leaves. He's like the cleanup crew.
He's the cleanup crew.
Leave no evidence. Swipes over.
Oh, where does that bring us, fellas?
Well, I mean, it kind of just, so in talking about the Yahoo, it's just thought that like over time, Yahoo became Yowie. There was overlap. The two became one, or it was one, or whatever. So,
yes. I do have one more thing. This is shared from some Aborigines to the authors of this book. The idea that there are actually more Yowies in existence today than there were pre-colonial times. Due to the changes, the terraforming, if you want to call it, of people creating dams and things like that. Because a lot of tribes will say that a Yowie was only sighted once every 20 years. And now, obviously, there seems to be a lot more frequent than that, We have dams being created, wildlife preserves and things like that, creating open spaces, protected spaces for animals to live in. In fact, there are more kangaroos, and I mean literally millions of more kangaroos in existence now than there were when, the British started colonizing Australia, at least estimated. I guess we can't go back and count every single kangaroo, but so it stands to reason, if there's more resources for a population of kangaroos, then it's possible that there's more resources for a thing like the Yowie to exist.
Oh, I mean, that's crazy too. If we go back to the legends of, oh yeah, the Australia was run by the Yowies, and then mankind said, hey, actually, we think we want this. Bam, big war. We fought the Yowies back. Yeah, woohoo. But now, due to our hubris as mankind, the Yowies are coming back.
Life finds a way, dude.
Nature abhors a vacuum. It's the Yowies world, and we're just renting it.
Oh boy.
So what was the earliest account that you guys could find, like with a date, like an actual record of something being seen?
Yes, I have an actual report. The first report, not a mention of the Yowie, but a report.
Okay.
From December 9th, 1882.
1882. Is that the same one? Is that what I have? December 9th, 1882. I do have that, but I also have one that comes before that.
Is it a mention or is it an actual sighting?
I have an actual sighting, and then I also have a mention. So to preface this, I will say there are a lot of reported Yowie sightings. There's a lot. I think I read more newspaper articles for this episode than I have any other episode, if I'm being legit. And just a little bit of again, I'm setting this up. Since the European invasion of Australia, there have been, quote, literally thousands of sightings of people claiming to see these big hairy creatures, mainly up and down the east coast of Australia and a couple 100 kilometers inland. That information comes from Tim the Yowie Man. We may talk about him a little bit more later. He also says that the Springbrook region in southeast Queensland has had the most reports of the Yowie than anywhere else in Australia. And so the earliest date that I could find mentioned about a Yowie sighting having taken place was 1795. However, that comes from a column in the Sydney Morning Herald that was written in 1987. So columnist Margaret Jones wrote that the first Australian Yowie sighting was said to have taken place as early as 1795. But I read this article that she wrote, and this article does not provide any information or additional detail about the actual supposed sighting that happened in 1795. The article is instead a commentary on the rise in monster/creature sightings, the popularity of horror writings, and how human beings can actually be more monstrous than a Yowie. So that brings us to the actual earliest account that I could find, which is actually a 2-for-1. So this comes from the Australian Town and Country Journal, and it includes 2 different encounters written on November 18th, 1876. So it's a little bit lengthy because it is 2 accounts, and I want to read it as it is because I think it's really interesting. I think I don't know if fun would be the right word, but it's got a lot of detail aside from I saw something in the woods, which a lot of sightings are. I saw this big thing that walked past the tree line. This is much more detailed than that. So It says, 14 days ago, and not more than 10 miles from here being Milburn Creek, towards the head of the Lachlan River on Coolamba Station, in one of the most secluded and melancholy looking spots imaginable, a terror of awe creeps over everyone that has to pass through this far and wide known gorge or death chasm of the river. While a lad of the name of Porter was shepherding a flock of his father's sheep near the dismal rocky bridge or gorge, as so called, an inhuman, unearthly looking being was seen by the lad coming directly towards him from the high, rugged rocks. The dogs, on observing such an unknown monster, would not attack, became timid and crouched around the lad's legs, who became horror-struck with fear. He left the sheep to their fate and ran, together with his collies, for home. On relating the inhuman sight he had seen, which was not credited by the father and others at home, they, however, at last mustered courage and went to the exact place described, but could find or see nothing of the hairy man. So that's the first part that this article mentions. But then it also says, on Saturday last, however, a fishing party of young men and young women went to the Rocky Bridge waterholes for a night's sport. These waterholes are famed far and near for quality and quantity of fish. It's customary for those bent for good sport to remain for the night. And, as a matter of course, a large fire is made. On the evening of this memorable day, 2 hours before sundown, the young men and some of the women went to set their lines, leaving one of their young friends to boil the billy and prepare supper. While engaged, the young woman was suddenly startled by observing a man, as she naturally imagined at first, was one of their own party coming towards the fire, but on walking closer, discovered the appearance to be unsightly and inhuman, bearing in every way the shape of a man with a big red face, hands and legs covered with long shaggy hair. From fright became almost spellbound, screamed and screeched, but unable to run. The men, on hearing such unearthly cries, left their fishing lines and ran with all speeds towards their comrade. On reaching the fire, the monster of alarm was only distant some 50 yards. On their appearing, it stood for a minute or two and turned away and made for the rocks. Two of the men armed themselves with the tomahawk and cudgel and followed this extraordinary phenomena of nature for a short distance up the rocky and rugged mountain, when suddenly it turned around and stood viewing the men as they were approaching. They also halted, being then about 60 yards from the object of terror, commanding a full view of his whole shape and make, resembling that of a big, slovenly man. The head was covered with dark, grizzly hair. The face was shaggy, darkish hair. The back and belly and down the legs covered with hair of a lighter color. This devil, or whatever it may be called, doubled round and hurriedly made back towards the fire and women again. On seeing him coming, a fearful commotion amongst the females and a kind of supernatural terror among the men took place. In the meantime, before reaching the camp, it sighted away towards the inaccessible rocky mount. The names of the two men who witnessed and took part in this scene are Porter and Dunn, well-known settlers on the Abercrombie and Lachlan rivers. Mr. Lehner, another settler from Lachlan, has informed me the other day that the neighbors all around have organized a party to go in search of the human monster and hunt him down, dead or alive.
Whoa.
The end.
Oh.
Again, pretty lengthy, but pretty interesting in my opinion. Like a lot of detail.
Yeah.
And as
wild.
from 1876, like that's so long ago.
I think that was 150 years ago exactly.
Even in, you said what, 1876?
Mm-hmm.
Even in 1876, people still liked to go to the beach and have parties, try to catch some fish, maybe have a fish fry until monsters showed up. That's like the premise of every 1950s B movie.
I think that's 145 years ago.
Here, I'll do the math. I'll make sure.
Okay.
Where's my calculator?
Okay.
2021 minus 1870. What I say, 1875.
I thought you said 1876. You're the one who has it.
You're the numbers person.
That's 145 years ago. Yeah.
Yes, I got it right.
Hoo-wee.
Congrats. Now I get
to
to read the next sighting.
Who knows where we'll be 144 years in the future, baby.
Dude, I'm going to be a computer.
Yeah.
So this is for, as far as the first reported sighting, this is what I got, which occurred 6 years later, December 9th, 1882, also in the Australian Town and Country Journal. December 9th. Guys, that's today.
Oh, snap. It is. That's the day we're recording. It's not the day that it's going to be released. That's the date that we are living in right now.
This moment.
It's today. And the person of interest who reported it was named H.J. McCooey.
Good old Henry James.
Cool. Henry James, dude. Who else is named Henry James? I'm sure a lot of people.
But
This-
do they have the last name Magui?
Maybe not. I don't know. That's a unique name. Now that you point it out. Well, this occurred in the wilderness between Bateman's Bay and Ulladulla, New South Wales. I'm going to read a quote. My attention was attracted by the cries of a number of birds which were pursuing and darting at it, ... It was partly upright, looking up at the birds, blinking its eyes and distorting its visage and making a low chattering, ... Being above the animal and distant less than a chain, in quotations, 22 yards, I had ample opportunity of noting its general appearance. The creature was nearly 5 feet tall, tailless, and covered with very long black hair, which was dirty red or of snuff color about the throat and breast. Its eyes, which were small and restless, were partly hidden by matted hair. The length of the arms seemed to be strikingly out of proportion. It would probably weigh about 8 stone. I'm assuming because this book was written by Australians, they just assumed I would know what that meant. And I don't.
Did you look it up?
No.
So a stone is an English and imperial unit of mass equal to 14 pounds. So it would have been about 112 pounds.
Or you could just say 8 stone and make it sound like it's something very light.
8 stone. Well, I'm trying to picture like 114 pounds or 12 pounds in 5 feet. That's pretty skinny.
It's it's thin, but it's doable.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. It was a most uncouth and repulsive looking creature, evidently possessed of prodigious strength. And eventually, H.J. McCooey threw a rock at it.
As one is to do.
And then it ran away. So.
And then it turned out he was the one who was uncouth the whole time because he threw a rock at it.
Well, I don't know. If this thing runs up on you and is like staring at you, you might feel uncomfortable.
I mean, I don't know, man. If it was there, the ruler of Australia, then it got its butt handed to it. And now it's ready to come back.
What I think is interesting about the end of that article from good old Henry James, at the end, he says, I do not claim to be the first one who has seen this animal, for I can put my finger on half a dozen men at Bateman's Bay who have seen the same, or at any rate, an animal of a similar description. But I think I am the first to come forward in the columns of a newspaper and give publicity to the fact of having seen it. Though a couple years prior, in the exact same
paper. Maybe he wasn't there in Australia at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know his history.
Maybe. I don't know.
He's like, oh, technically I said I'm the first Henry James to make a claim of it in the newspaper. Good sir.
You might still be the only one.
How uncouth.
Alex, do you have any good sightings to share with us that happened like maybe around that time, like late 1800s?
Unfortunately, not too much. When I was looking up the sightings, it was mostly just, people saw something, and we've been doing what 190 something episodes of people claiming to have seen stuff, and the sightings just don't hit like they used to anymore. So I found some stuff for a little later. Maybe some actual proof for once.
Okay. All right. Eli, was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we hit the 1970s?
Oh my goodness, yes.
We got to talk about disco. We got to talk about the Rolling Stones, 70s.
This is going to be fun. I'm just going to share this story without sharing much context about it, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. This comes from... Heck, I don't know what paper it comes from, but takes place in, no, apparently this comes from 1795.
Is this, I wonder what's her face was referencing?
Who?
That article, the
girl that I talked about, Margaret Jones, she makes mention that the first sighting was to have taken place in 1795, but she didn't give any details about it.
Actually, no. This cannot be that, because I have just informed myself that this actually occurred in 1790. Sorry, 5 years prior to 1795. The book
Okay.
writes it as 5 years prior to 1795. I'm not sure why they didn't just put 1790. That would have been much easier and less confusing.
Okay. So 1790, something happens.
Yes, this is called the Giant of Botany Bay.
Giant of Kandahar? Say what?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. So there were several English sailors. So at the time, Australia still kind of being colonized. And I guess, yeah, I don't know. It's a complicated thing. But anyways, these are English sailors who were there, probably going back and forth between England and Australia several times. And they went ashore at Botany Bay to get fresh water. And they saw 3 of the tallest and biggest naked men coming their way. So they all got freaked out and they ran on their ship, leaving behind casks of water and rum behind. Now I will read directly. When the 3 savages got to the seaside, they stared at the ship for a long time with wonder and admiration. One of them, having gotten the keg of rum, he tasted, spit it out, and shook his head. Another did the same, but the third drank plentifully and began to jump about in a frightful, wild manner, shouting and making a hideous noise. The other giants went off and left this one, who drank to such excess that he dropped on the ground and lay as if dead. I like how they act like they've never seen anyone pass out from drinking too much.
From the rum too, of all things.
Yeah, they're like, it looked like he just died. I don't know what happened.
He danced around. He told off-color jokes. We've never seen it before.
Ugh. The sailors went on shore, bound him fast with ropes, and with much fatigue got him on board the ship, where they secured him with iron chains, where he slept upwards of 24 hours. He showed not the least token of illness at sea. He came in the ship Rover, captained by Captain Lee, to England from Botany Bay and landed at Plymouth November 29th, 1789, reported in 1790. He is much tamer and not so savage in temper as might be expected. He is 9 feet 7 inches high, 4 feet 10 inches broad, a remarkable large head, broad face, frightful eyes, a broad nose, and thick lips. Gonna skip that part. It's a sly reference to the Aborigines. Very broad teeth, heavy eyebrows, hair stronger than a horse's mane, a long beard strong as black wire, body and limbs covered with strong black hair. The nails of his fingers and toes may be properly called talons, crooked like a hawk's bill, and as hard as horn.
So they took him back, and anything else happened? Like, did he?
No, that's the end of the story.
They just had a giant.
Yes.
Like, hey, everyone, we got a drunk giant, and we brought him to civilization. Check him out. They're like, whoa.
I don't think he was drunk when he got there.
Oh, they just kept giving him more rum.
Here, drink more.
Yeah.
And where does that come from again? Can you remind me?
I didn't get the paper. This comes
that's
from
right.
The book says that these authors claim that they have this story. They don't say where it's from. Also, half the book is like the appendix, so I'm sure the appendix. Wait, yeah, that's correct. The appendix?
Appendix.
What's it called? It's the
The appendix is at the back. Table of contents is at the beginning.
yes, the
Stories in the
appendix.
middle.
I got confused because
I had appendicitis.
you had appendicitis, and I'm like, is this an organ?
Appendicitis followed with appendectomy.
Yeah. So
Wow, that's funny.
they also believe it to be a hoax, like a completely fabricated story that was made up from other stories that perhaps the writer of the article had heard about Yowie-like creatures existing in Botany Bay, which is still supposedly somewhat of a hot spot to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think perhaps it could have been, an homage to something like Gulliver's Travels?
When did Gulliver's Travels come out? Like 17?
26.
Could have been.
1720s. And when was this story come out?
Although, okay,
1790?
Jasmine, let me ask you. You do know what the Yahoos are in Gulliver's Travels, right?
Don't put me on the spot like that. I just
Okay.
read what I read.
Okay. Because for anyone who doesn't know, and I'm not trying to single Jasmine out here,
All I know is that it's a satire.
it is. Yeah,
Is it
it's
in bad
complex.
taste?
It's no, it's not. It's not. The Yahoos do not resemble the Yowie because the Yahoos are talking horses.
What?
Wait.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
No. It's so Gulliver's Travels. He goes to 4 different places. The very first place he lands the tiny people, and then the second place is the big people, and then the third I think is a
Yahoos.
floating city,
It is.
and then the fourth is there's 2 types. There's the talking horses and there's the Yahoos, which are the man-like creatures running around.
You're correct. The
Wow.
horses are the hooninims.
Mm-hmm.
The hooninims. Got it. I was confused.
Yeah,
So the
he-
Yahoos, yeah.
So because he lands on this place and there's these horses and they're beautiful and they talk and they're smart and they're amazing. And then he finds out that there's the Yahoos, which are basically like people running around and they're dirty and they don't brush their teeth and they're doing it in the mud constantly. And he's just disillusioned by mankind.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting because that island, I think he marked as being close to Australia, but I don't think it was anything. I don't think it was a statement about Australia. I think it was more of a satire of his country,
it's
England. you know?
Commentary on mankind and horses,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because then once he goes back to society, he's like, oh well, it's all a bunch of Yahoos running around.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway.
Yeah. 1726. What a hot take.
My apologies. I was wrong. Okay.
I was like, I didn't read Gulliver's Travels, but I did a little bit of research and I didn't see nothing about talking horses.
Okay, because as soon as Alex corrected me, I remembered the several times I was corrected in 7th grade for confusing the two. Every time I would get it wrong. And my English teacher, who, bless her soul, she follows me on Instagram now. And, who knows? I think she's listened to a couple episodes of the podcast. You know what? If she's
Shout her
listening,
out. What's her name?
her name's Mrs. Hine. So
Yeah.
What's up, Mrs. Hine?
if you're listening to this, forgive me
Give
for
him an
messing it
F.
up. Still, all these years later, I'm still confused.
If you're watching, you know what? Let's all give everybody a break, because all people know about Gulliver's Travels are the tiny people and the big people, because no one makes it past that.
It's true. Not even Jack Black.
Right?
So, do we want to make a time jump then? Do we want to start talking about when things really pick up, or is there still something else we want to mention?
Let's talk about, before we do the time jump, I don't have any more reports that I would like to share, but just know, dear listeners, that there are a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. And the reports kind of died down in, like, after 1915, not 1950. They kind of die down. And it's interesting because the authors kind of they examine why this might have been the case, because apparently Australia wasn't a very populated country at that point in time in the early 20th century, but it was the most urban for a little while because a third of its population lived in the big cities. I wonder what is the most urban country now. Let's see. Most people didn't have cars until the 1950s. And even then, off-roading wasn't really a thing for a while. You have to consider the limitations of early motor vehicles. You know, when you really get down to it, it's crazy to think cars have really only been around for like 110 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's so crazy. And now they got all the gizmos.
They've been around for what 150 years, and people still don't know how to use them to this very day. It's called a blinker, folks.
Don't even get me started. Dude, so the fighting with the Aborigines, much like the Native American wars, kind of came to an end around the early 20th century, which is very interesting. It's like the same time it ended here in the States. It's kind of weird. We parallel Australia in many ways, and hopefully no more. Farming took over as the gold rushes ended. Again, look, gold rushes. We had gold rushes here, you know.
They got Bigfoots. We got Bigfoots.
We got
What's going on?
Bigfoots. Their Bigfoots are a little bit crazier than ours.
With big shark teeth. Ooh.
But then, just like we did here with the Native Americans, they kind of forced Aborigines. I say kind of forced. They forced Aborigines into camps, into reservations, and things like that. So tensions between settlers and Aborigines was very tense, and so Aborigines weren't willing to share their mythology with outsiders because, why would they? And not that outsiders were even poking around anyways, because it was kind of like, well, they're out of sight and out of mind. And yeah. And so they proposed that even the awareness for the existence of the Yowie was at an all-time low, because the two groups were not talking to each other. So like, you're not going to know about it. But yeah, that kind of, there are sightings of Yowie-like creatures in the intervening years, but it like drops down drastically. It's very, very small. And that takes us to 1975.
Yeah, and I have something even earlier than 1975, which I tried to find like a firsthand account or an interview with someone or something like that, but it was all just secondhand stuff. But kind of like the intro is like reports start rising again in the early 70s, following a sighting of some large human-like tracks by an Australian Air Force surveying team on Sentinel Mountain. So during 1971, a team of Royal Australian Air Force surveyors conducted a survey of the Sentinel, the great mountain overlooking the now almost deserted Glen Davis Township, and it was supposedly inaccessible by foot. So this is why it's compelling, because you can't get to this place on foot. You have to be airlifted. They landed on the summit in this helicopter. Rain had fallen on the mountain the day before their landing, so the ground was still muddy in places. And it was here that the surveyors received what they later described as the shock of their lives, supposedly. For upon the muddy ground, they came across a number of freshly made large man-like footprints, which were too large for any normal human being. And you will find that information on quite a few sites, but I didn't find any names. I didn't find any dates except for just the year 1971. So I don't know how factual that is, but supposedly that happened. And it is, like I said, compelling if this mountain is supposedly inaccessible by foot and they land up there and they find barefoot footprints, like what's going on there? And then I know we're going to talk about 1975 at large here in a minute, but just to jump a little bit of ahead, just to kind of show you the impact of what these sightings did. In October of 1976, the Queen Bee and Festival Board put up a $200,000 reward for the capture of the Yowie after a dam worker was confronted by a dark gray hairy creature with its head merging into its shoulders, about 6 feet tall, and the reward has yet to be claimed.
Dude, we're gonna make so much money finding these cryptids.
Yep. I mean, if we get out there and we find a Yowie, my bills are paid. I don't have to worry about student loan debt anymore.
Bag them and tag them, baby. We're coming for you.
So let's get into 1975. What do you guys got? Who do you guys got?
Okay.
old T-Rex Gilroy,
Yeah,
stomping his way through the primordial ooze of cryptozoology.
take it away, Alex.
Well, I don't have too much. I'll set the stage because here's a very nice way what I found, because on Wikipedia it says who is looking for the Yowie, and it gives us three people. Rex Gilroy, since the mid 1970s, paranormal enthusiast Rex Gilroy, self-employed cryptozoologist, has attempted to popularize the Yowie. Gilroy claims to have collected over 3,000 reports of them and proposed that they comprise a relict population of extinct ape or Homo species. Rex Gilroy believes that the Yowie is related to the North American Bigfoot. Along with his partner Heather Gilroy, they've spent about 50 years amassing his Yowie collection, saying he's identified 4 different species of Yowie, which he believes is a subspecies of Homo erectus.
Yeah. So Rex Gilroy, first saw one of these large footprints when he was hiking over the Katoomba area of the Blue Mountains. Now,
In 1970.
yes, they were bear prints about 2.5 times the normal size of like a person. And he's very specific with the time. Apparently at 3:30 p.m. is when he was hiking back from Mount Solitary, when he stopped to rest on a rock and eat some sandwiches. He says,
As one is to do.
the creature jumped from behind a tree, scurried through giant ferns and into the rainforest, making a grunting, gurgling sound that changed to a screech once it entered the scrub. It was covered with hair, with no facial features, and had the loping gait of an ape. I thought it was a circus orangutan.
Man with
Orangutan.
that.
Oh no.
That had escaped. I shot home and told Dad. He's an old miner, and he said he'd heard of these things being seen before. So that was kind of like his first experience. I don't know how old he would have been then,
I think 25.
because I had some numbers I had some numbers happening, because I watched an interview with Rex.
Mm.
In this interview, which is the video I sent both of you guys, so you might have watched it too. In that video, he says he's almost 70 years old and that he had been researching the Yowie for 56 years. 70 minus 56 is only 14. So
Well, what year did that video come out? Do you know? Was it 2015?
2003 or no, I don't remember, but that doesn't matter, because if in the video he's saying he's almost 70 years old and he's been researching for 56, that would mean he was 14 when he started researching. But that doesn't check out unless he was 14 when he had this experience that he told his dad about.
I got that he was 30 years old in 1975. Which would make, if that video came out in like 2013,
2013, I think.
56 years. Well, I got that. Okay, I got that he came out on the scene. No, wait. What I said earlier was correct. He was 30 years old in 1975. He had his sighting in 1970. He started getting into it as a result of his sighting, and then kind of burst out on the scene in 1975. So 2013 minus 56 years. What is that? 1973, 1960. I don't know. I'm so confused. Let's do the math. Let's do some numbers.
Well, that's what I already tried doing. His birthday, supposedly, according to Google, is November 9th, 1943.
Okay.
So if that's true, if he saw something in, what did we say, 1970?
Wait, that still doesn't make sense.
That's what I'm saying.
It still
That's
doesn't
what
make
I'm
sense.
saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. I don't know how old he was supposed to. I don't understand.
Because if his birthday, if he was born in 1943, yeah, he would have been like 16. He would, or
no, 19. If he saw it in
1970, oh, wait, yeah,
born in 1943, he would have been 27.
Mhm.
Right. So like 20, I said 25. So that's roughly correct. But if we're going off of the 56 years, he's been researching for 56 years, and he said that in 2013. That means he's been researching since 1957, which would make him 16 years old.
Mhm.
I know. I don't
None of
understand.
this makes sense.
Well, welcome to the world of kayfabe, baby. You gotta build your own origin story.
Let me take a quick listen to make sure that I'm hearing it properly.
Maybe he was born on a leap year, so it's like every 4 years.
It's true. You know what I mean?
Anyway.
I get confused. Like, we've been doing this podcast for like 6 years.
Mm-hmm. 6.5.
Anyway, Rex Gilroy saw Yowie in 1970. We don't know how old he was.
Yeah.
No, 27.
Okay. Anyways, after that, he took to literature, read about the Australian folklore, read about the Yahoo, the Yowie, all that. He turned to the newspapers to talk about his experience, just to kind of build on what Alex was saying earlier about what Rex Gilroy's beliefs are on the origin of the Yowie creature. He's stated as saying Australia was joined to the mainland Asia until the Ice Age of 20,000 years ago, as was America, and I believe these creatures migrated from Asia before the ice melted. Also talking about the sightings that he has documented and all of the artifacts he's collected. He calls his collection priceless. He did set up the first Yowie Research Center in Australia in 1976.
Mhm.
And he has gathered a lot of evidence over the years, such as stone artifacts, too big and cumbersome ever to be used by man, which I want to know what that looks like, and monster footprint casts at his Mount York Natural History Museum at Mount Victoria in the Blue Mountains. Now, this information did come from a 1976 article, so it's probably outdated. I don't think the museum, or maybe the museum is still up. I don't know. We were talking a little bit about that before we started recording. I think Eli might know more.
About if the museum's still around?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. I don't think it is. Don't quote me on that. The only reason I don't think it is because in the interview that I watched with Rex from 2013, he talks about how all of his collection has overtaken his home. Like, there's a very small section of his house that's basically inhabitable because everywhere else is storage for all of his documents, photos, footprint casts, and everything like that.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And he does claim to have the largest privately owned natural history collection in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah. He was born in the Blue Mountains, grew up camping in the Blue Mountains. And of course, the Blue Mountains, I believe, is a hot spot. According to my book, it is the hot spot for the Blue Mountains. As far as I understand, some of the best evidence for Yowie has come from the Blue Mountains. So it's as good a spot as any. I believe he still lives there, somewhere in the Blue Mountains. You know, I'm sure it's a large area, but yeah, I mean, he's in the right spot for it. In the mid 70s, though, he was considered the one and only Yowie researcher. The way they put it in my book is that there was never a question of, if you see a Yowie, like, who do you call? It was always like, you talk to Rex Gilroy, like that. He was the dude, you know? And that's why he considers himself the father of Australian Yowie research, which I find funny because there's no Yowies anywhere besides Australia. So it's a little redundant, but it's okay. And he kind of is, because he's really the one who popularized. He got it popular, you know, from, like I said, there was very scant stuff happening for the majority of the 20th century, you know, until you get to the last quarter there, you know, and a lot of the people who now research the Yowie were influenced by Rex Gilroy's work, you know, it's just the way it is. Yeah, well, okay, so here's the thing with Rex Gilroy. He is a controversial figure. We'll put it that way. He's controversial because, as I mentioned, a lot of people can owe their interest into the Yowie and the popularization of the Yowie to Rex Gilroy. However, the flip side of the coin is Rex Gilroy is also the reason why the Yowie is often not taken seriously. And the reason being that his evidence, and I'm not saying all of his evidence because clearly I have not seen all of it, but some of the evidence he has presented, a lot of the really public stuff is like fake. It's just we run into a similar issue with the Beringer. We talked about Rex Gilroy in the previous episode, to where a lot of the reports that he has of Yowie sightings don't include a lot of details. It's very much someone saw a Yowie. What does that mean? There's no descriptions. It's just someone saw this. A lot of his footprints look questionable, but then he also has footprints that also look incredibly legitimate. So you're like, this is so odd, and Jasmine brought to light just this previous week as we were doing research that he has a condition. He has Asperger's. So, I guess it should be noted that on the show, we don't make fun of people's conditions. We usually try to keep it confined to the research that people do. And sometimes that research is not great, and I don't know. That's just like the terrible truth.
It's interesting because usually when we look at a cryptid, like say Bigfoot, there's been thousands of people have come forward with sightings. Hundreds of people have had their own different casts made, their different fur grabbed. It's like a spread phenomenon of people finding stuff. And for the Yowie, it's just one guy finding every bit of evidence.
Yeah.
Finding, the good looking stuff, the weird looking stuff, the questionable, the photos of blurry fit, it's usually it's like different people coming forward, but it's just the one guy who's like, I have all the evidence.
Well, you could say that, but also, like I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of sightings. There are a lot of newspaper articles. So like, even though Rex Gilroy might be the person that's like putting all of that out into the world, there are other sources. There are firsthand accounts of people seeing things. It's not all made up.
No, yeah, that's right. This is definitely different from like the Beringer, where everything we have on the Beringer comes from Rex Gilroy. Rex Gilroy is only, to be completely honest, he's maybe 10% of all we have on the Yowie. There really is a huge database on the Yowie like that. I think I messaged you guys earlier this week because I thought the Yowie was going to be like the Orang Pendek, to where you could cover the whole thing in one episode and you pretty much touched on everything that's ever happened. But the Yowie is more like Bigfoot in the sense that there's like stuff you could like really get into and look at for a long time, and it's like one aspect of the Yowie, it's like, I had no idea. So I'm not trying to belittle Rex Gilroy, but I'm just saying there is that much,
Yeah, no, I had brought it up with the guys because I just wanted to make sure that we made that known, because I don't know if anybody knows that. I don't know if he wants people to know that. I know it was mentioned in the interview we watched, so we just wanted to kind of like make note of it and be a little more understanding, respectful, because that puts things in a different context.
Oh, this is the point I wanted to make. He does mention in that video that he feels like he has been rejected by science because he's an amateur.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that he's wrong because of that, to say that. I think he's misconstruing why he's been quote unquote rejected by science. I think it's not because of his questionable evidence, but because of the subject matter, unfortunately. There's, like it happens to people who study Bigfoot for their whole lives, and you have like serious doctors, people with PhDs who study Bigfoot, big fat,
Big fat.
who
That's
study
Big
Bigfoot.
Chungus's sister.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. Why is she called Big Fat? Oh my. Um,
Jasmine.
Or brother, sibling.
Big Chungus.
Keep digging
There's-
that hole, Jasmine.
Bigfoot, people have studied Bigfoot for their whole lives, people with actual PhDs, and they've still gotten laughed out of rooms before, and it's not because they're amateurs or if they're real scientists, it's not because of that. It's because the topic is Bigfoot. The topic is the Yowie, I don't know why science like picks on the people who study that stuff. And it's like, okay, bro, chill.
Science
You know?
ain't ready for the truth,
Yeah.
Because then science would have to admit, oh yeah, we do have 12-foot gorilla monsters to contend with.
Yeah.
We're not the top of the food chain anymore, baby.
This subject of science, though, might be a good segue to start talking about like some evidence that's been presented aside from like what Rex Gilroy has. Unless there was any other sightings or anything else about like Rex Gilroy that we wanted to talk about.
No, drop the bomb.
Drop what bomb?
The knowledge bomb.
The knowledge bomb. Well, I don't have much, but like we mentioned earlier, well, maybe we didn't mention it. There's not a lot of sightings happening currently. There are some, but there aren't a lot. So like the most recent thing that I found was September of 2021. Yowie hunter Jason Heel claims that he has proof Yowies exist. And what did he do? He says he has proof. He says he has proof.
He might.
Huh?
He might.
He might.
that
He founded the Yowie Research Group in 2012. And he's gone on lots of searches, and he's got a catalog of audio and video recordings that claim to be of the Yowie. And he makes a lot of statements. He says, I recently saw Yowies running at superhuman speeds north of Bullsbrook. He said, I believe there's a population of Yowies all around the outer suburbs. He says, a lot of people think I must be loony to believe that they exist, because if they did, then we would have found bodies or bones by now, which is an argument that we hear all the time.
All the time.
But Yowies are elusive and have the intelligence to stay away from human beings. He believes that the creatures have been here for millions of years, even longer than the indigenous people, which we kind of touched on earlier. He says, they're not Homo sapiens, they're not monkeys or apes, but they have a primate face, but are more human-like. He said they vary in size. You can have small ones the size of a child and bigger ones that grow up to 11 feet, which have been seen in the Blue Mountains. They will eat anything: berries, plants, kangaroos, snakes, wallabies, and roadkill. Side note, I've eaten snake before. I had a
Wait, when?
rattlesnake sausage.
whoa.
Forget what the place was called. I'll let you guys know later.
Did it have a bit of a bite?
It was pretty fine. It wasn't anything crazy. I liked some of the other dogs there, but dogs meaning hot dogs.
Oh dang, Jasmine, going savage over here.
No. Anyways, snakes, wallabies, and roadkill, and humans too. There are lots of people who go missing in the bush and cases remain unsolved, and usually it gets put down as homicide, but I think some of these are the work of Yowies. Hot take. He believes governments know Yowies exist, but they keep it on the down low because it would be bad. Because it would be bad for tourism.
Yeah.
Anyone knew they existed, they wouldn't go camping anymore, which I think is an interesting claim, because usually cryptids and legends and things like that up the tourism.
They do. But it's also, they say the same thing about the US government and Sasquatch, right? They say the US government knows Sasquatch is there, but they won't say anything about it because people won't want to go camping anymore. And it's like, because of the fact that it kills people sometimes, it's like, but mountain lions kill people
Mountain lions, bears, alligators, any kind of wild animal, deers, even.
You
They
know,
gore people.
people are still gonna take the chance. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just
Yeah. And I guess it is kind of different than like say Nessie, because Nessie isn't really seen as violent. Nessie really hasn't,
no.
killed anybody.
It's just
It's
Satan.
there.
That's 13th Prince of Hell.
Yeah.
You know. But maybe it's different because they are so human-like. Speaking of Jason Heel, there's this wonderful video out. Wonderful. This supposed trail cam footage from South Queensland of a Yowie that was captured by researchers Jason Heel and Jason Dunn as they kind of used apples to lure it into the view of the camera. And maybe I'll play it on top here. It's interesting. You see its eye shine. You see its head at a pretty clear point.
Kind of do a little wobble.
Yeah, with the sagittal crest, it looks like.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
It's kind of wild.
I don't know.
Just a Yowie trying to get some apples.
You decide, listener.
Yeah, what do you guys think? Let us know right now. Tell us. Well, you're wrong.
Well, one of the other modern day sort of Yowie researchers that's out and about this year is Dean Harrison. He's been tracking the Yowie for decades, and he released a video back in May, which he claims shows 2 9-foot tall Yowies in the wild. It is a thermal video. It was taken in May at Springbrook National Park on the Gold Coast. Appears to show the heat signature of multiple large creatures hiding in the bushland. Now, what was annoying to me, I know I could have probably found the full footage unedited and whatever, because the segment that I watched was from a news interview, a news broadcast. So they did the thing where they like play tiny clips of the video and edit it all together weird and are talking over it and whatever, and they don't show it from beginning to end. It's probably on is it him who has the website? Yes. He has a website, yowiehunters.com.au. It's probably on there. I did not go look for it there. My bad. But he told Sunrise News that the night video shows something hugging a tree before 2 huge Yowies step out into view. And he estimated that they must have been at least 9 feet tall, and noted that they made no noise arriving and no noise leaving the area. He said, "We wouldn't have even known anything was there if it wasn't for the thermal cameras," which I find interesting, considering the Yowie supposedly makes so much noise with its screeching and its howling and its tree knocking and its rustling through the trees. But maybe it's stealth.
Earlier, we talked about how they range from being timid and shy to very aggressive, and they rip your arms off. So they Yowies are known as some of the noisiest creatures in the world. They pound on sticks and they throw rocks and they howl, but also they're very quiet and they don't make any noise at all. Oh gosh.
I think they could do both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They put their minds to it.
I mean, think about it this way, Alex. Someone listening to our show might be like, dang, Alex talks all the time. But in reality, you can sit and draw a picture for hours on end and not say a word.
It's kind of horrifying.
No, a little bit on Dean Harrison, actually. So as Desmond mentioned, his website is yowiehunters.com.au. He started it in the late 90s. It's for his research group called Australian Yowie Research, or AYR. And it really reminds me a lot. It really reminds me a lot of the BFRO, the Bigfoot Researchers Organization, which was started by Matt Moneymaker in the late 1990s. And even the whole setup of the website feels very similar to the BFRO. Like, it's pretty interesting that again, we're mirroring each other, mirroring.
Well, I've got another person we can talk about, Tim the Yowie Man, who I mentioned earlier. Don't have much on him, but I do have a couple of fun facts. So he says that he saw Yowie in 1994.
Mm.
He says he's a proponent of the supernatural theory. He says Yowies may not be flesh and blood. He's been looking for them for 20 years and he's never seen another one outside of that first sighting in 94, and he's never come across any physical evidence to say they exist. And he goes on to say that some people believe the Yowies are paranormal beings, that some people can see them and some can't, a bit similar to ghosts, and that some people can see and only at some stages. That might explain why no one has found a carcass or the physical evidence of one. So we're back in the territory of interdimensional window followers and ghosts, and it's a ghost Sasquatch or whatever.
Yeah, it's just a ghost Bigfoot. That's why there's no bodies, because they died thousands of years ago.
Yeah. Now, get this. This is my favorite part about Tim the Yowie Man. He won a case against Cadbury. Alex, do you have this? Do you want to say this?
Well, so he's Tim the Yowie Man. And apparently Cadbury, which is a big chocolate producer in the UK, they have a popular line of candies called Yowies.
Yowie chocolates.
Yowie chocolates, and they're like 6 different little characters, and they have this the whole like world building associated with these Yowie candies is wild. The Wikipedia for Yowie chocolate, the little Yowie chocolates, is longer than the Wikipedia for regular Yowies.
Really?
Oh,
There's so much info on these guys.
Wow.
But they tried to sue him, and he won the court case against them.
Yeah, they were trying to sue him because he was trying to trademark his name as like the Yowie Man. His real name's Timothy Bull, and it was a 4-year-long dispute. And because freaking Cadbury said that they believed people would confuse him with their range of Yowie chocolates, which was a situation he called ridiculous and hurtful. And that
it is ridiculous.
It is.
I like how it's hurtful too.
Yeah. Okay. I have more to say about Tim the Yowie Man.
Go for it. Aside from his chocolate war.
Besides the chocolate war. So 1995 is the year Tim the Yowie Man shows up on the scene wearing a baggy gorilla suit, a Tim the Yowie Man headband, khaki bush clothes over this baggy gorilla suit with shoulder patches that also say Tim the Yowie Man. And he made it to national news like really, really fast because his sighting was in 1994. He had heard of the Yowie before, but wasn't really interested in it. I think he worked like a normal office job prior to this. So he's like an outdoorsman dude. So his sighting, I want to touch on it and get into the nitty gritty here. But it was
good because I did not read about it. So
no worries. It was May 1st, 1994. He was at the summit or near the summit of Mount Franklin. He was skiing and was on his way towards a ski chalet, which I'm assuming is the ski lift that takes him up, you know? And then there, and I read quote for quote from Tim the Yowie Man himself, there in full view was this massive black hairy ape-like creature. It had long arms, no neck, and was moving from the south to the north at a slow pace. I couldn't make out its legs because of the thick bracken, but I had a clear side-on view of the rest of its body. My immediate reaction was to run, but for some reason I couldn't. So I started walking backwards, slowly, very slowly. After about a dozen steps, with the creature now dipping below the curve of the spur, I turned and bolted back to my car as fast as I could. And so as a result, he just decided to quit his job, assume the title Tim the Yowie Man, and start researching. And it worked out for him.
Yeah.
I know.
It sounds like a Wes Anderson movie.
He's a legend, dude. He's Tim the Yowie Man.
Yeah.
You know, and in fact, actually, the authors share some of their personal opinions because when he first came out, they all thought he was making fun of the Yowie. And then as he became more
Well, I mean,
involved-
with that get up,
yeah,
You got to have a gimmick. You're gonna stand out in this wild world.
that's what they realized. As he became more involved with Yowie researchers and stuff, they were like, oh, this dude's like seriously into this. Like he goes out and researches and does stuff, but he just
He has
is
a little
Tim
bit
the
of
Yowie
fashion
Man.
too,
Yeah, he's
you know?
got that thing going on. You know?
I wonder when Home Improvement came out, if that was like, because Tim the Yowie Man sounds a lot like Tim the Tool Man Taylor,
Tim the Tool Man.
and it's both around early '90s. So I just wasn't sure. Watch him he's riffing on Home Improvement too.
Home
Okay.
Improvement first aired in 1991.
Oh, made its way to Australia in 1993. Year later, guy sees a Yowie, quits his office job, is reborn as Tim the Yowie Man.
Okay, get this. I have some mind-boggling evidence for you guys.
Oh,
I'm ready.
Yeah, maybe you guys came across this, maybe you guys didn't. There have been cases, reports, and photographs, videos of Yowie nests. Okay, I guess it's not that impressive.
keep
Oh.
going.
Oh,
Yeah, lay it on us. What are these nests like? What do these Yowies sleep in? Do they
this is
have
this is
tchotchkes that they put on the wall?
well, usually they're constructed under overhangs, like rocky overhangs. They're constructed out of leaves, saplings, and grasses. And so some of these nests have been examined by actual scientists. So a fella named Dr. John Campbell, who is an archaeologist, 2004 was part of an expedition with his name is Major Les Hiddens.
Less hidden.
Okay.
Les Hiddens. Okay. He's kind of like a survival guy. I think he's big in Britain. Or maybe he's from Australia. I've seen him. We've seen him in things before, but never like
Okay.
I don't think he's huge here in the States.
Mhm.
But maybe he is. Maybe we're all just living under a rock. But
yeah.
anyways, they're filming like a TV expedition, I think, or a TV show. He's out there doing this special, and they stumble upon like these freshly constructed nests that are 1 meter by 1 meter big. So I think that's 4 feet is 1 meter, almost 4 feet.
I'll find out.
Yeah. Please.
So, and this happened in 2004. They have an archaeologist with them named Dr. John Campbell. And he is quoted as saying, if I were anywhere but in Australia, I would have to say that this was a primate nest because gorillas construct nests and so do chimpanzees. It is not like out of the realm of possibility for an ape to construct a nest.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking even further, I have seen some supposed Sasquatch nests in person back in April this year. You can watch the documentary now. Yeah, on the trail of Bigfoot, the Discovery, and its companion piece, Olympic Sasquatch. Yeah, that was the title I decided on. That's on YouTube on the Small Town Monsters channel. And basically up in Washington, they found some constructed nests out in the middle of the forest. I think they found 21 altogether.
Wow.
Constructed out of huckleberry branches, constructed in a very similar way to what's described in this book, to where the softer stuff is on top and there's a kind of base made out of bent branches at the bottom. Not only this, there's a dude named Paul Compton who's been studying 4 beds that he's found for a while, and he notices that they're upkept for around 3 months at a time, to where the old leaves that are dying will be replaced with new fresh ones, and then they're left for like 6 months at a time, and then they come back, and in the exact same spots they refresh the beds again.
Interesting.
And he thinks it's because they migrate out of the area seasonally looking for different food.
Mm-hmm.
and there's like actual, it sounds crazy, like weaving almost. He says he's found pillows, like pillows on top of the mattress, constructed out of grass, which gorillas have been observed to weave leaves together as well.
And it's important to note that Australia doesn't have any gorillas. There's no monkeys, there's no primates other than humans in Australia. That's why this is so interesting to be finding in Australia.
It's really crazy. I like flipped the lid when I saw that there was Yowie Nests. I was like, there's no way. This is nuts.
I can't handle it.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy. Boy, who's making these nests, bro? Like Yowies, real, they're real guys.
They're out there. They're
It's
making
real.
nests, and they like to make pillows as much as us.
Yeah, dude, you need something.
I got something kind of crazy from just last year. So get a load of this. So we've talked about Yowies. We know they like to make their own little nest. We know that they probably have diets consisting of kangaroos. But this article comes from the Daily Mail. It's September 29, 2020. Yowie hunters are in a frenzy after discovering a pile of poop
Oh no!
on a termite mound that they believe is evidence of the supernatural Australian beast, the Yowie.
I did not read this.
I'll send you guys the picture too.
No, I don't.
Send it to me. I'll look at it. Did I tell you guys about like the 4-foot long Bigfoot turd I saw in Colorado?
It's a lot of poop. And we can't go an episode without talking about it. Well, here's the thing. So I'll send the images. I'm gonna send them to the group. You gotta see them, Jasmine. They're kind of crazy.
All right.
Is it like this huge turd?
On a termite mound. So they took a termite mound and they broke it apart and they used it as a toilet.
Let me see.
And they say whoever did this decided to break the termite mound and poo on it. No animal I know would/could do this, the group members wrote. Also, it looks nothing like an animal poo of a pig, a roo, or an emu, etc.
It doesn't. It looks like a human turd.
Well, it comes to this guy. He was a member of the Tablelands Yowie sighting Facebook group. He posted it while it was a bushwalker near Ainsley River, far north Queensland. So that's where it was. And he talks about how numerous bushwalkers in remote parts of the country claim to see Yowies every year. He talks about how he was walking and he felt this presence like watching him. He felt uncomfortable and he hightailed it out of there because he said he had an ominous feeling like he wasn't welcome. Headed back to the bush because he felt like he was being watched. And then the best part is he found the photos, got out of there, still feeling uneasy about the encounter several hours later. He eventually made it to the Ainsley pub where he knocked down a couple of rums to calm down.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's the connection of not only do people like drink rum after seeing Yowies, Yowies drink rum after seeing people.
Do you guys want to hear something that's probably fake and just absolutely ridiculous, or do we not want to waste that time?
Oh, what are we talking about? Skyfish or what?
No, we are talking about Tony Duffy.
Tony? You mean like Tony's Pizza?
Sure.
Hey, Tony.
Mr. Duffy says he was camped in the bush northeast of Gympie. Is it Gympie or Gympie? Gosh, I need to freaking...
It's probably Gimpy, but
these
Gympie.
Say it with an Australian accent.
No. Late one night, when a very large male approached him, he says, I got a fright, and so did he. The creature seemed human, but larger, and spoke in a language he thinks might be Latin. He says he was quickly able to learn a few words in English, and we spoke for about 2 hours. They're very intelligent, but he says they're in danger. He says they build meager shelters in the forest, which are often destroyed by humans. The EPA won't respond to my calls. The next night, after this happened, the visitor came back with his wife and daughter. And he says, my whole mission is to protect them and to convince people to leave them alone and to not hurt them. In the last 12 months, I've had close contact with Yowies on at least 7 occasions. These creatures must be protected and respected. Yowies are clearly the missing link that scientists have looked for decades. I believe they are the greatest discovery in the history of natural science. They are very peaceful creatures and love their partners and their children dearly. Eli, your face.
I don't know. I'm just thinking about that. That is probably
Even-
fake.
What do you think?
Yeah, even Yowies uphold the concept of marriage and loving one another.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's funny. Out of all that, the thing that I think is most credible is the ability for it to talk in a language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that is possible.
But to learn English so quickly
I don't know.
and like talk for 2 hours.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, what are they talking about, dude? What do you like?
The
The
weather.
secrets of life.
You know,
You know,
like
the
how did
typical
that?
conversation topics that people have when they're psychically connected with supernatural creatures like aliens and whatnot.
You know, it's like, okay, how did that go down? Like, this is water bottle, then it says water bottle. Okay, got it now. Yeah, I come from a different planet. It's like, what? Like, how did that go in 2 hours? Like, what?
I think it's funny that he said the EPA won't call him back. I've left messages. Listen, they're out there and they're getting married and they love their children and we talk for hours on hours and they know Latin. They're just like, what? Do you have an oil spill?
Well, here's something that is not fake, but this is probably the greatest disappointment since our last episode, which is in 2001, someone hit a Yowie with a car.
No.
Oh no.
Well, don't worry, the Yowie is fine.
Yay.
Because
Yeah.
it didn't exist, so the car drove through it.
Oh my Lord, no. It was March 2nd, 2001, on a rainy night. A 17-year-old Aaron Carmichael, basically, he was driving. What was he driving?
A blue Granada.
No, this was like his prize car. He loved this car. He says that multiple times, and he like totally messed it up. It's bad. I'll say it when I find it. But anyways, he's coming around the corner on a dirt road and he's going 70 kilometers per hour, which translates to 43 miles an hour, which is still fast, but doesn't sound as fast as 70 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I also noticed that when I visited El Salvador, my family down there, all the cars are in kilometers per hour, and you just feel like you're going so slow the whole time. And then you look down at it and it's like you're going 60. And I'm like, this is not 60. This doesn't feel like 60 because it's not. Basically, he comes around the corner, he's booking it, and something crosses the road in front of him. He says it looked like a man. It was taking really big steps, and it tried to beat him across the road, but it was not quick enough. And he hit it, and he kind of, he hits it. He's like, tries to swerve out of the way, but he still hits it. And then he's completely sideways. This thing scampers off into the woods. And he's just like, apparently he hit the steering wheel. Like he hit it so hard. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the actual quote. Here we go. Let's see. The collision made an extremely loud bang, and it seemed like I went over something because the actual car got airborne a half meter off the ground, and then I skidded off into the gravel and hit the embankment, then spun around, did about a 180, and it all happened so quick. Headlights broken, front bumpers falling off.
Total.
Kind of, because he does drive home. He says no person could have a build like that. It was just too big. About 8 feet tall, extremely broad, really long sort of hair, black brownie color, scraggy, wild. I've never seen anything like it. And so he drives home. Well, okay, so like I said, he's like completely spun around. He starts to back up and turn around again when he hears something hit the back of his car, which he thinks was it kicking him, like
Oh.
kicking the car. He drives home, tells
Got
his
a
mom,
temper.
dude, I would be pretty mad if I got hit by a car too. You know? So he goes home, tells his mom and sister. His mom and sister are like, dude, you hit something. You hit somebody, and they're probably laying there bleeding out. So they go back. They don't find anybody bleeding out. What they find are large man-like footprints, but they're too big to be a human. And they admittedly said they were freaked out being in that area. They felt like something was watching them and said they only stayed in that area for like 3 minutes and then booked it. They're like, we're not staying here. So this is where it gets bad. The next day, he starts doing research on Yaoi. He comes across Dean Harrison's website, reports his sighting. Dean Harrison actually comes out and investigates it because there's like claw marks on the car as well as the front bumper damage. But here's the real bad thing. There was DNA evidence because supposedly there was blood and hair on the front of the car, but he washed it off before coming across Dean Harrison's website, not thinking anything of it. And he was like, after he reached out to Dean Harrison, he was like, he literally calls him, I feel so stupid. I was out there washing all the mud and everything off of it. Oh, correction. I didn't see any blood or anything. I did hit some hair on the tailgate. It blew off with the pressure cleaner, and then I realized what I'd done. Excuse me, there was no blood, but there was hair. That's horrible. That sucks. That's the biggest disappointment since the Ranger.
It's rough, man. Also, that's called tampering with the evidence. If you're involved with a hit and run,
it's called messing with the natural order.
Yeah. You mess with the natural order.
Okay. All right, friends. My final story for today is also the most mind-boggling and the one that will leave you with the most questions about the Yowie.
The final solo for the world tour. Here it is.
Yes. This comes from the Gudjingbura tribe, subgroup of the Bundjalung on the Letitia Peninsula. I'm pretty sure I said 3 of those words incorrectly. But anyways.
That was a hard one.
The fellow who told this story to the authors of this book is Kyle Slaba, who is a member of this group in this tribe, I believe. Yeah, the Gudjingbura tribe. Kyle Slaba. He is also a National Parks and Wildlife officer. So this is where it gets interesting because Kyle, this tribe seems to be aware of the hairy man, as they call him. As kids, Kyle and his friends said they found strands of his hair as well as footprints just like around, like all the time, like in different bits of the jungle and stuff that was near houses and stuff. The hair was long and dark brown, and they said it smelled bad like a circus. And the footprints also had 5 toes. It's weird. There seems to be discrepancies between the number of toes, but there is also discrepancies between the number of toes in Bigfoot tracks as well. So I guess it's not that weird, but it is weird. Why are what's happening with their toes?
They lose them as they get older.
Kyle was informed that apparently back in the day, like even up until the mid 1900s, there's this rocky cave on the beach, and this beach, the sand levels, they have measured it, have risen, I believe, like 12 feet since in just a few decades. So the cave is a lot smaller than it used to be, but apparently this hairy man used to hang out in this cave. They called him Fingal Oh, it was on the southern side of Rocky Fingal Headland, where the lighthouse now stands. For our Aussie friends out there, if you know where that's at. So members of the Gujingbura tribe would come out to go fishing or sometimes swimming. And instead of just leaving their stuff out on the beach, they would actually leave their stuff with the hairy man. And he would be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to watch your stuff for them. Like, and it's weird because everyone treats it as fact. At first, you're like, okay, this is just a cute story, but like it gets weirder, like even more weird. Like there's mangroves in this whole area. I'm picturing this more as like a swampy region of Australia than the typical just forest or something, or desert as we typically think of Australia. It's mangrovey, swampy, This is an interesting story. This comes from Kyle here. He says, one of my uncles came home one night and the hairy man was in his kitchen. They all came in the front door and it was in the kitchen going through the food cupboards, and he went out the back door from the veranda into a tree. Some other people have seen them, mostly on the beach, and there have been plenty of footprints and hair. And that's when he gets into how he used to see hair and footprints as a child. However, he all thought it was a cute story until 1991, which is when he had his own personal sighting with the hairy man. So this is what he says happened to him. We walked past the Aboriginal cemetery and saw something down along the road. I should mention, this was like his walk home from school. He walked this path like every day. So it was odd to see something there. I remember noticing it. I thought it was just a bush, but there was not usually one in that spot. It was dusk, still a little bit of light in the west. I forgot about it until we got quite close, and then I walked over to see what it was, and he was just sitting there. I walked right up to him, right up to his feet, just 1 or 2 feet away. He was just sitting there holding onto his knees. It wouldn't register what I was looking at until he looked up at me. He looked straight up at me and I was frozen. The expression really was just blank. Blank as you could get, completely blank. There were a couple of other fellows with me just looking at him and I was speechless. And I grabbed Ernie, who was next to me, and he just looked and caught his breath and just screamed, and that started everyone to panic and everyone ran. He goes on to further describe what he saw. Sitting, he was probably just up to my stomach. Standing, he would have been taller than a good-sized man. He was like a mixture of human and animal, a darkish brown color. It looked like a human face, but with long hair on every part except for around his eyes. He had pretty much just brown eyes. His jaw was small, but stuck out more than a human's. The mouth looked really monkey-like. I can't remember his ears. His forehead was prominent and the cheekbones. It had long hair, not really matted, but it was pretty rough, pretty long all over him. My first thought was it's a gorilla or a monkey or something, but when it looked up, it looked more human than anything. And apparently they still think it's around. In that same area where Kyle had his encounter, Kyle's father, like 20 years before, had an encounter of something shadowing him in the woods in that spot along that. As he walked along the path, something was shadowing him, right? And people still report that on that same stretch of road from time to time. Dude, is this Yowie? Are Yowies helping people? Is that what they've been reduced to after they got destroyed in the war?
Have they taken to rummaging through people's fridges?
Yeah,
A guy walked in and was just like, hey, what? And the hairy man's just like, I thought I'd make myself a sandwich,
Sandwiches.
Sandwiches. It always comes back to sandwiches.
Yeah, anyways, that's how I wanted to leave it. There's so much on the Yowie. There's too much on the Yowie to cover in one episode. So we're going to do Yowie Mountain.
No, we're not.
No, sir.
This hat is getting real hot.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it on and be festive.
Yeah.
I think we're done with the Yowie.
I think so. If there's anything more to say, we'll save it for part 2 down the line. But
No.
that's it, folks.
What do you
Show's
mean,
over.
no?
There's plenty more. There's so much more, but we're done.
Show's over.
We're done for now. We might
You
do a
don't-
part 2 later.
Okay.
You know, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We're
No.
done.
Thanks, friends. All right. See you later.
Bye.
No.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, for real. Thank you as always, listeners, for listening to us on your favorite podcast platform. If you're listening, maybe check out the YouTube.
Mhm.
If you have checked the Paranormal Network YouTube channel has the video version of our show. You can see us wearing the Santa hats that we keep referring to.
Yeah, you can see us wearing these funny itchy hats.
Yeah, this thing's been on for 3.5 hours.
Well, oh my God. So consider subscribing, liking, hit the comments, let us know what you thought. Leave us a review if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts. Helps us rank better. Share it with your friends, your family, your mother, your children. Get the word out.
Yeah.
Check it.
Makes it a great Christmas present.
Consider following us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's at Cryptid Campfire. We're fairly active on all 3. Going even further, check us out. Check out our website, cryptidcampfire.com. You can get yourself a snazzy t-shirt that none of us are wearing at the moment, but it would make a great Christmas gift. And going even further than that, check us out on Patreon. If you've done all the previous things, $5 a month gets you exclusive episodes every month, as well as an exclusive wallpaper designed by our very own Alexander Daikaiju, who's going to tell you how to follow him online.
Yeah. Also, I had a little bit of a surprise. Hi, I'm Alex Daikaiju. I do a monthly wallpaper for the Patreon people. I wanted to do a secret, so I'm going to show Jasmine and Eli what this month's wallpaper looks like. We'll hear their reaction, but don't tell the audience what it looks like. Don't ruin the surprise. If you want to see this photo and know what they're reacting to, go to the Patreon and subscribe. It'll be worth your wait, because listen to the reaction. I'm going to send it to you guys right now.
Ooh, okay. This is great.
This is live on the air. So what it is we've hinted at it in the previous episodes, but now it's come to fruition. Send it to the group. Don't say anything. Just react for the people.
Oh, sicko. Dude, it's awesome. Oh, man. It's sick.
If you want to know what they're reacting, check out the Cryptid Campfire Patreon.
I like it.
So that's me, Alex Daikaiju. If you want to see more of my work, I'm at Alex Daikaiju on Instagram. It's Alex DAIKAIJU. Post a lot of monster crypto-related artwork. Do my own comics for fun and profit. For my sources today, for this the end of YowieCon at the end of the Cryptid Campfire World Tour, I use the Dreadnought Wikipedia. I use Cryptids Wiki with a Z. I use the NamaAlien.com, 7news.com.au, mythos.fandom.com, abc.net.au, and perthnow.com.au, because there's a lot of Australian websites out there.
Yeah.
And now I'll pass it on to the one, the only Jasmine May with. Take it away.
Thank you. If you want to follow me on social media, my name is the same on both Instagram and Twitter. It's Jasmine May with, JASMINEMAEWITH. Almost forgot how to spell my own name. My sources for today are as follows. It's a little bit of a list. Encyclopedia.com, Sunrise 7 News, TVTropes.org, Perth Now, The West Australian, ABC Local Radio, WRCB Channel 3, Wikipedia, Google Newspapers, Australian Town and Country Journal, Sydney Morning Herald, the Queensland Times, the Gympie Times, the Australian Women's Weekly, SBS News, Australian Broadcasting Corporation, that one thing that I forgot how to pronounce, which is... I'm going to find it. I'm going to find how I wrote it out. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm Gonna do it.
Credits start rolling.
The Kamilaroi people. Kamilaroi in Other Australian Languages by William Ridley. BigfootEncounters.com, Australian Yowie Research Center. Unexplained, Strange Sightings, Incredible Occurrences, and oh my god. Unexplained, Strange Sightings, Incredible Occurrences, and Puzzling Phenomena by Jerome Clark and Daily Mail.
Yeah.
Oh,
How about that? Next time you're at a job interview, put that down for your references.
Your references?
Yeah. And moving on to the ultimate reference, the Eli Watson. Take it away, fella.
What am I a reference to? Anyways, hello everyone. You can follow me at the Eli Watson. That's Instagram. My source for today. I say source. Well, actually, I guess I have two. So the other one is Yahoo Movies. And then the Yowie in Search of Bigfoots.
Wait, why did you say Yahoo Movies?
Because it's ka.movies.yahoo.com, but it's Yahoo Movies in the corner, in the top left. It says Yahoo Movies.
Okay.
For the video, for the trail cam. Yahoo Movies.
They're the best source to go for besides Tweaktown for crypto.
Tweaktown. You'll get that joke if you follow our Patreon page. Anyways, this is the Yowie in Search of Australia's Bigfoot, not Bigfoot's Australia, by Tony Healy and Paul Cropper. And with that, everyone, I bid you adieu. Good night. Have a great, happy holiday.
Yes, we are going to be taking a 2-week break for the holidays. No episode coming on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, but we will be back in the new year, first week, I think. What is it? This
January 7th.
January 7th.
You can expect it.
Yeah, we'll be
And
back.
There.
We're talking about stegosauruses.
Yeah. Bat 'em, frig 'em, zinga, baby.
But thank you, a sincere thank you to everybody who listens to us on this tome, this World Tour tome. It was our first season doing video versions of our podcast. So again, just to mention, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, thank you so much. If you're interested in seeing the video version, want to see what we look like, want to see all the videos and the pictures that we talk about when we're doing our research, you can find our videos on the Paranormal Network YouTube channel. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Our producer Jason is the one who runs that account, and he'll see your comments and pass them along to us, and we also take a look at the videos every once in a while, see how they're performing. So thank you so much for kind of being on this ride with us as we continue to navigate the video versions of our podcast, which we've been really excited about, and we're happy that we get to do it this way. It's pretty cool the way that we've grown over the past 3 years. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas, have a happy new year. We love you, and we'll see you in 2022.
Woohoo! Happy holidays.
This podcast is a part of Straight Up Strange Productions. Discover more shows like this one at straightupstrange.com.